Welcome to the Fridays with Larry podcast. I'm Larry Lannon. This podcast is sponsored by Citizens State Bank. Learn more about the business and personal banking options at mycsbin.com/Larry. Or stop by their Fishers branch at the Thomas A. Weaver Municipal Complex. Citizens State Bank, member FDIC, and an equal housing lender. I'd like to thank Citizens State Bank for sponsoring my podcast series. The Fridays with Larry is one of those, so certainly an honor to be associated with Citizens State Bank. I would ask one thing of all of you, please do me a favor, like and subscribe to this podcast series. It's a very big help to me, very much appreciated. And please feel free to comment. I'll take any comments, good, bad, or any place in between. Just any comment is always appreciated about my podcast series here, particularly the Friday with Larry, which is a new podcast series. You know, one thing I still have to consider here is, I feel like I'm waking up in a dream. Yes, Indiana University is the national championship of all of college football. They are the champions. They have that championship. That is a statement I never imagined ever uttering in my lifetime. And I'm 74 years old. I've been watching IU football games since I was a teenager. And, the fact that this has happened is still amazing. Congratulations to all the fans, the students, the team, the coaching staff. I just really feel that IU upped their game, and I'm going to make a comment about someone who's related to me because my brother-in-law is Fred Glass, and Fred started the process of upping the facilities, upgrading the program, increasing the budget. Scott Dolson took over after Fred retired from that job or left that job and made it even better and continued at warp speed doing the same thing. So I credit Fred, I credit Scott Dolson, the current athletic director, just everybody involved in AU football. Certainly the new system helped them. The new portal system helped upgrade a team much more quickly than had been possible under rules years ago. I know I talked to Todd Zimmerman, a member of the city council, and he told me he went to Dick's Sporting Goods. They had advertised that they were going to have, like shirts and things with IU national champions available right after the game. They were going to stay open late. He didn't think there'd be that many people there. I guess the place was packed up in Hamilton Town Center. So obviously the fans are excited. Everybody associated with Indiana University is excited for good reason. By the way, you may notice that I'm not wearing my glasses. I don't really wear glasses. I still wear them most of the time. I'm nearsighted, have been since I was in high school, but I just had some eye surgery so I can read a lot more easily without the glasses, actually better without the glasses. So that's why I'm not wearing them now. But you'll see me out and about. You'll probably see me wearing glasses again. But in this realm, I may not be, just because it's easier to read my notes without the glasses on. Going a little further with the IU story, I worked for a time at a place at that time called Network Indiana. It was tied to the old wire radio. It was an interesting operation, a big operation, and I got to know a lot of wonderful people and had a chance to work with some outstanding journalists at Network Indiana, the news operation. The sports department was on the other side of the building, which was a pretty big building, relatively so anyway. And I never saw Don Fischer very much, but we were technically colleagues at the time. And when I left broadcasting full time, I would take a working vacation and go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and do some contract work for a radio station to cover events there for qualifying and practice sessions back in the 1980s. And I would see Don Fischer on occasion. He remembered me. I used the name Larry Mitchell when I worked at Network Indiana. And I just from my conversations with him can tell you, he's just a very kind and considerate person. So happy for him that after all the years of calling IU football, and having to, suffering as a broadcaster, you kind of suffer with the team when the team isn't doing well. To see that championship on his watch at age 78, still doing the games, hats off to Don Fischer. Very happy for him. I want to move on to what's happening at the Indiana State House because what's happening there is impacting communities like Fisher's, a suburban community to Indianapolis. The lawmakers there in the State House are considering just scaling back some of the local authority that local governments have for zoning, land use in general. Um, what they want to do and this is the whole idea, the governor and several leaders in the legislature have said they want to reduce the cost of living and the cost of housing, which is a big part of anybody's cost of living. That's a very admirable goal to have, but there's a lot of disagreement about how to get that done. The governor and the legislative leaders seem to be saying that, well, if we give the industry more leeway, take away some regulations, that will result in more inventory, more housing, and it will lower the cost for everybody. Well, not everybody agrees that's the best way to go about doing it. Mayor Scott Fadness spoke to the city council Monday night. He had been at the State House earlier that day. In fact, he seemed to be saying a compromise was brewing where the state legislature can get something of what they wanted and some preservation of local control could be done. This is not only a short session of the legislature. Remember, they used up some of their session days late last year in that redistricting fight. So they have even fewer session days this time than they would have in a normal short session. So time is certainly of essence here, shorter than normal, but we'll have to see what happens. What I found is when a deadline looms, the state legislature tends to get things done, and we'll have to see what gets done in the end. It's really what happens. The House and the Senate will normally pass pieces of legislation. They're somewhat different or largely different. They go to a conference committee, and that's where the final legislative language is written. Speaking of housing, Fisher's in the city council meeting that was held Monday night did mention that they've seen very good compliance with the new ordinance, an ordinance that was passed in the middle of 2025 that essentially limits rental homes in any given neighborhood of Fisher's at 10%. There are all kinds of exceptions for grandfathering in people who've been there, already there at the time. There are other exceptions. I'm not going to go through all of them here. I've written about that extensively. But part of the new ordinance is that people who are rental owners must register with the city. And the city is finding that about 95% of rental owners that appear to have actually not conceded, but have complied with that ordinance, and they are registering. I think it's about 137 rental homes, which is very small for a community of our size. So 95% is the number they're looking at. They estimate that about 137 rental owners still need to do that registration process. We're going to see how this goes, how this goes, because now we're moving into a compliance mode where the city will be working on compliance in this new ordinance. Also, it's something to keep in mind. People forget in the last legislative session, at the very last minute, as Fisher's was prepared to finalize that ordinance, there were some lawmakers who were trying to slip a piece of legislation into a conference committee report at the very last minute to limit the ability of cities to put limitations on rental properties. Carmel came in very closely after Fisher's enacted ours. Carmel came in and did their own. So it would have affected us and anybody else in the state that wanted to do that. That got nixed at the very last minute. But the question is, well, will any state lawmakers introduce something again in this current short session? So far, we've seen no indication of that, but things can be slipped in at the last minute. So it's certainly something to watch. This is all part of something I have seen ever since I started covering local governments in Indiana, I started doing that in the early 1970s. There's been this debate about local control. Often you'll see state lawmakers and even people in the U.S. Congress say, local governments should make a lot of the decisions about people's lives. They should make those decisions. The problem is when those decisions are made and the people in the state legislature or the U.S. Congress or the U.S. president disagrees with a local decision, they'll step in and override that local government. So what I found is that, people at the state and federal level are all for local control, unless local control means they're passing legislation they don't like, then they seem to have no problem stepping in and doing something about it. Coming up next, my conversation with a partner in the new Vicious Biscuit franchise, which is opening in Fishers. However, I'll warn you, we had some major technical issues. My connection with David Dessner, he was in South Carolina. It wasn't good. You'll see a lot of freezing up of the picture, but you can't hear him just fine. The audio did tend to be relatively good, but the video was choppy at best. And we lost total connection there at the end. But just wanted you to have a chance to hear and see that conversation to the extent that we can, and that's coming up. Today's episode of Larry in Fishers is brought to you by Citizens State Bank. For over 150 years, Citizens State Bank has been committed to the communities they're rooted in, providing more than just banking services and products, but a true community partner dedicated to giving back and supporting our community's growth. How? By making sure you and your local business owners have the products, tools, and expertise you need to thrive. In addition to everyday checking and savings accounts, Citizens State Bank offers a selection of business and personal financing products, plus a team of local experienced lenders who are as invested in your success as you are and committed to helping you secure the right financing for your needs. Skip the call centers and hold music and get the friendly hometown service you deserve, the modern digital banking tools you expect, and relationships that grow with you, whether you're running a business or managing everyday finances. You can visit Citizens State Bank's Fishers branch inside the Thomas A. Weaver Municipal Complex at 9 Municipal Drive, Suite 5, or learn about it more online. mycsbin.com/Larry. That's mycsbin.com/Larry. Thanks to Citizens State Bank, member FDIC and equal housing lender, for supporting local news and the Fishers community. I'm with David Dessner. He is one of the partners with an ownership interest in the Vicious Biscuits franchise opening here in Fishers. So, Mr. Dessner, welcome. I appreciate you taking time to join me today.
Well, thanks for having me.
I understand you have many interests. You own a staffing company, for instance. I'm just curious why you decided to dive into ownership of a restaurant franchise.
The staffing business is that's Steve Wise, one of our partners. Our local partner, Steve Wise, is the owner of NCW, which is a local staffing company. I live in Charleston. I'm actually in the banking world. So the four partners, Steve is one. He's in the staffing world. I'm in the banking world. Scott Lieberman is in the manufacturing world. And Netta is in the healthcare world. So we have a very diverse background. And we do share the passion for food and experience. And the way we got started was George McLaughlin, the founder of Vicious, is a good friend of mine here in Charleston. And we were on a golf trip years ago, and Steve and I and our buddy Andrew and Scott we're all talking to George about Vicious and how's it coming along, and he said it's been great, and we're franchising, etc. And Steve and I have been talking about opening a restaurant for years, and just have no experience at all in it, and we felt that this could be an opportunity to kind of maybe open something with training wheels. And we just it started as talk and talk, and then one day we said, you want to do this? And we all agreed, let's do it. That's how this all kind of got started, which was several years ago.
Okay, so I was misinformed about your background, but I have a bank as a sponsor, so that's that's a very, very good tie-in right there. Uh, I have to ask you this question because it's the first thing I thought of when I saw this franchise was coming to Fisher's. Most restaurants are very protective of their image. It's kind of unusual for a restaurant chain to have vicious in their name. I'm just curious, why did the ownership of the company in general choose vicious as part of their name, do you think?
Well, I think that they focus viciously on service and on quality of food. And, the one thing that we were all aligned with when it comes to Vicious and why we really chose to partner with them was they take their food and their experience so seriously, and they look at the details that are mind blowing, whether it comes to food preparation or hiring practice or how we greet our customers. And it's the level of detail that is often missing in many of the restaurant experiences. And that's why there are lines at the door in freezing cold weather, and we haven't even had our grand opening. So um, I think that's why they did it. Obviously, it also has a cool ring and a cool name, and there's a kind of a hipster vibe around it. Um, so that's why I think they picked it.
Yeah, for those who are not familiar with Vicious Biscuit, talk about how you would describe the concept and and how it's different from other spots that specialize in breakfast and brunch.
Sure. Well, first off, everything there is scratch made. So the experience goes as follows. You walk in, uh, you're greeted at the door when you come in. Uh, they want to make sure that the customer is familiar with the menu, and you'll order your food. There's a variety of menu items. Obviously, biscuits are on there, eggs, fried chicken, gravy, um, beignets. There's a keto menu, etc. And you'll order your food, and then they'll give you a ticket to put on a stand, and you go to your table, and we'll deliver it to your table. We also have a butter and jam bar. So if you want to have like honey butter or um, sweet potato butter or specific jams, um, everything is scratch made. So what nothing comes in frozen. Everything is made to order, and the food quality is just incredible.
Well, I'm curious why, of all the places you could put this restaurant, why Fisher's was the right fit for you.
There are a couple reasons. One is, Steve is our local boots on the ground guy there. He loved the whole kind of that area, the Noblesville, Carmel, Fishers. Um, Specifically, the area that we chose is very much up and coming. They've built a variety of apartment complexes nearby. There's that big Ignite Center nearby. Still nice proximity to downtown. And Fishers has really welcomed us with open arms and has been really cooperative in our planning. And we saw the not only the spot, but corporate had reviewed the demographics, and it just seemed like a perfect spot for the restaurant.
Yeah, for those who need to know, it's 8711 106th Street in an area called Delaware Plaza. So obviously that as you mentioned, that particular spot did appeal to everyone involved. So I assume that we're recording this on the Thursday before you open, and this will post the day before you open on a Saturday, the 24th of January. I'm just curious. I assume you have most or everybody hired. What kind of jobs are you filling, and what kind of positions are you hiring for this operation?
So we had our soft opening actually 4 weeks ago. So we've been open. The reason why we always want to push back on a grand opening, we want the kitchen to be perfect. We want the front of house to be perfect. We want the baristas to be perfect. And so we didn't want to just open without having the experience of training and getting everyone up to speed. So we are open. Actually, we're open today. We'll be open tomorrow, and obviously our grand opening is Saturday. That being said, we are always looking for good people. Mike Pratt, who's our local operator, who's had a ton of experience in the food and bev industry, he's fantastic. I would encourage anyone who's interested to stop into the store and ask for Mike or one of our other managers, and we can schedule an interview. So we're always looking for good people.
When you have a national brand that's moving into a local area, I'm just curious, how do you kind of maintain the balance between making it a national brand with a name and also keeping that local feel? Is it a hard balance, or how do you view that as an owner?
Well, Steve and Mike Pratt are obviously the local boots on the ground guys. Steve as an owner, Mike as an operator. They are very much entrenched in the community. Mike is involved in a lot of high school sports. Steve is involved through his company with a ton of charities. Um, from a local standpoint, it is really important for us to give back to the community, whether it's sponsoring teams or giving discounts to different charities, etc. Today, for example, we are giving free entrees to first responders. This week, we're giving discounts to a charity called Mudsock, which supports youth and youth sports, etc. So that's on the local side. On the national side, um, this really encourages us to give back to the community and we want to be part of the community. And that's why the team of Steve and Mike are just a perfect fit for this franchise.
I think that when you have a new operation anywhere, the first 1 to 3 years, that's the key. So my question to you is, for you as an owner, what does success look like for the first year of Vicious Biscuits and Fishers? I think we have just lost Mr. Desner there. I think we've got our basic connection problem here with freezing up. So I'm hoping he'll be back soon. If not, we'll have to cut this interview short. But I think we've lost him. So I want to thank David Dessner for joining us. He is one of the people in the ownership group of Vicious Biscuit. Mr. Dessner, are you back with us? It looks like we've got a serious connection problem here.
I'm not lost yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I, I think our connection has been kind of dicey all from the beginning. So I think you finally did cut this off. Mr. Desner, I want to thank you for joining us. I wish you well with your new operation, Vicious Biscuit, at 8711 106th Street here in Fishers. As he said, they've had a soft opening already. The grand opening January 24th, a Saturday here in Fishers. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So finally today, a news item that did not get much attention in the mainstream media, but I think it's something that we need to think about. It's interesting. It's a development that's been going on for a number of months. Our neighbors to the south, Kentucky and Tennessee, have a number of distilleries. They produce spirits, as you may probably know. I rarely consume alcohol anymore at my age and just health conditions I have, and I just don't drink much alcohol at all. Well, I appear to be part of a national trend. Fewer Americans in general are drinking alcohol. Even younger people don't espouse it as much as chewing that whole idea. And I think it has to do with health concerns, particularly as far as why Americans are drinking less alcohol than before. But there are other issues going on that are hurting the distilleries. Not just a lowering of the demand in the United States. These tariff wars have had their impact, and even though some have backed off, people in Canada, in particular, were very angry with America on some of the tariffs that were put on it. Even though some have been backed off, there are people in Canada who still will not buy liquor made in the United States, which has had a major impact on our industry domestically. Several distilleries have already filed bankruptcy in recent months. The Jim Beam operation, they have completely paused production this year at its main facility in Kentucky. So I understand why there are health reasons people are doing this, and the trade wars have had an impact on this. But I do feel for the people that work in the industry. Good paying, steady jobs are hard to find sometimes in places like Kentucky and Tennessee. So I feel for the employees who maybe have worked in that industry for a long time, but definitely we are seeing the impact of a downward trend in distillery production. So that's it for this week. Please check for me next week. Thanks for watching and listening. This is Larry Lannon. And once again, thanks to Citizens State Bank for sponsoring this episode of Fridays with Larry. Learn more about their business and personal banking options at mycsbin.com/Larry. Or stop by their Fishers branch at the Thomas A. Weaver Municipal Complex. Thanks again to Citizens State Bank, member FDIC and equal housing lender, for supporting local journalism in Fishers.